They told you to be kind, to be polite, to always turn the other cheek, to avoid confrontation, to be gentle, and maybe, just maybe, if you were nice enough, the world would return the favor. But let me ask you something. Has it? Has the world rewarded you for your goodness? Or have you quietly suffered, unnoticed, unheard, and unappreciated, while those with sharper edges and colder hearts seem to rise above you, command the room, and walk away with everything you were taught would come to the good guy? Let's stop pretending. In the real world, niceness, uncontrolled, unguarded niceness, is not a virtue. It's a signal, a bright, flashing sign that tells the world, here is someone who will not fight back. Here is someone you can take from, without resistance. Here is someone whose silence can be bought with approval, whose strength is traded for comfort. And no one understood this better than Niccolo Machiavelli. He wasn't a man concerned with fairy tales. He didn't write about how the world should be. He wrote about how the world is: cold, brutal, selfish. He saw through the masks people wear, the charming, smiling, agreeable masks, and spoke directly to what lies beneath: ambition, survival, dominance. And that's why today we begin a journey. A brutal awakening for every man who's been told that being nice is the key to life. Because the truth is this: nice guys don't finish last. Nice guys get devoured. Let me paint you a picture. You're the guy who always says yes. You answer every call, respond to every message, help every friend who needs something, because that's what good people do, right? You soften your words so you're not too intense. You compromise, even when you know you shouldn't. You make yourself small so others can feel big. You think, if I give enough, eventually I'll be seen. I'll be respected. I'll be chosen. But here's the Machiavellian truth. The world doesn't owe you anything for being agreeable. The world doesn't remember your sacrifices. It forgets them. It uses them. And then it moves on. Because niceness without power is nothing. It's not noble. It's naive. Machiavelli, in his seminal work, The Prince, stated clearly, a ruler must learn how not to be good. That doesn't mean he must be evil, but it means he must understand when goodness is a trap, when virtue becomes vulnerability, and when mercy invites manipulation. You see, human beings aren't driven by gratitude. They're driven by self-interest. You may give out of love, but they take out of convenience. You may think, they'll see my heart, but they're thinking, what else can I get? Now, is everyone like this? Of course not. But you don't need everyone to be ruthless. You just need a few in your life, a boss, a partner, a friend, a stranger, and that's enough to ruin you. Because in a world where wolves hunt in silence, being the lamb is not a virtue. It's a death sentence. You know this, don't you? You've felt it. That slow erosion of your confidence. That quiet humiliation of being overlooked, passed over, dismissed. You've watched louder, colder men take what you've earned. You've stood there, heart open, hands extended, while the world walked past like you were invisible. And what did you tell yourself? I just need to be nicer. I just need to prove I'm a good man. I just need to love harder, give more, try again. But Machiavelli would call that thinking delusional, because the world doesn't reward kindness. It rewards leverage, presence, power. You think they'll value you if you bend? Number. They'll just keep pushing until you break. You think they'll appreciate your sacrifices? They won't. They'll ask for more. And when you finally collapse, emotionally, financially, spiritually, guess what? They'll disappear. So let's end the illusion here. Let's bury it. Being nice is not the answer. Being strategic is. There is a time for kindness, but there is never a time for weakness. From this point forward, I'm going to walk you through the transformation, not into a villain, but into a man who is respected, feared, and unshakable. This is not about becoming cruel. This is about becoming calculating, understanding timing, silence, boundaries, and presence. This is about controlling the game instead of being a pawn in it. It's about mastering what Machiavelli called the art of necessary ruthlessness. In the next chapter, we'll explore why needing approval is your greatest weakness, and how the addiction to being liked makes you prey in a world built by predators. But for now, remember this. You were not born to serve everyone's comfort. You were born to walk with purpose, unshaken. You can still be kind, but only when it serves the mission, only when your strength allows it. Because kindness without power is a performance, but kindness with power, that's commanding. There's a disease that no doctor talks about, a silent addiction that infects millions of men. It doesn't show up in blood tests, it doesn't cause fever or pain, but it destroys lives, it erodes strength, it turns powerful men into passive shadows, and it's called the need to be liked. Let's speak the uncomfortable truth. Most nice guys aren't kind because they're morally superior. They're kind because they're terrified. Terrified of rejection, terrified of disapproval, terrified of being misunderstood. Every word they speak is filtered through a question. Will they still like me after this? Every action, every decision, every boundary they try to set, held hostage by this invisible leash of validation. Machiavelli would laugh, not because he was cruel, but because he saw how foolish it was to build your identity around other people's comfort, to hand your power to a crowd that shifts with the wind, to water yourself down so you can fit inside someone else's cup. Because here's the paradox. The more you try to be liked, the less people respect you. The more you chase approval, the faster they run. And the more you accommodate, the more they demand. Being liked is a currency. And just like money, the more you flood the market with it, the less valuable it becomes. You become predictable, controllable, boring. And in the Machiavellian world of power, the predictable man is already defeated. You see, when you're desperate for approval, you become a mirror. You reflect back whatever people want to see, their opinions, their beliefs, their moods. You smile when they smile. You nod when they speak, even when you disagree. You twist yourself to keep the peace, to keep the love, to keep being the good guy. But here's the tragedy. In becoming everything for everyone, you become nothing to yourself. No edge, no principle, no core. You're just a reflection, a projection, a placeholder. And when people finally look at you, they don't see a man, they see a convenience. Machiavelli didn't write for convenience. He wrote for kings. And a king does not ask for permission to exist. He does not soften his truth to win affection. He does not shrink himself for harmony. He does not speak in riddles just to avoid conflict. He commands presence. You might say, but I don't want to be feared. And that's fine. But understand this. The opposite of fear isn't love. It's indifference. And that's what you'll get from the world when you obsess over being liked. Indifference. People don't chase the man who explains himself. They chase the man who doesn't need to, the man who moves like a shadow, unbothered, unapologetic, mysterious. Not because he's cold, but because he's in control. Let's make this real. Have you ever apologized for something you didn't truly regret, just to keep the peace? Have you ever smiled at someone who disrespected you because you didn't want to seem too sensitive? Have you ever said yes when your soul was screaming no? That's not kindness. That's fear, dressed in politeness. That's not diplomacy. That's self-betrayal. You're not being noble. You're being used. And every time you seek approval, you give people leverage over you. They don't even have to manipulate you. You do it for them. You bend your truth, silence your instincts, soften your standards, all so they'll clap. But Machiavelli didn't care about applause. He cared about results. So let me be clear. If you want to build real power, not popularity, you must kill this addiction at the root. You must become the man who does what is right, even if it makes others uncomfortable. The man who speaks with finality, not for consensus, but for clarity. The man who would rather walk alone in truth than be surrounded by smiles bought with lies. You must stop chasing, because power does not chase. It draws, it pulls, it creates gravity by existing, not performing. Here's what Machiavelli would tell you. If you must choose between being loved and being feared, choose fear. Not because fear is cruelty, but because fear creates boundaries, and boundaries create respect. Approval does not create respect. Politeness does not create respect. Sacrifice does not create respect. Only power, displayed with quiet confidence and unshakable self-respect, creates respect. And you earn that by no longer needing to be liked. So from this moment forward, stop begging for love. Stop asking for validation. Stop twisting yourself to be understood. Instead, stand, speak, decide. Let people misunderstand you. Let them label you arrogant. Let them walk away. Because the ones who matter, the ones who truly belong in your life, they won't run when you stop explaining. They'll adjust to your truth. And the rest? They were never meant to stand beside a man who walks with purpose. There is a weapon more powerful than anger, more unsettling than threats, more unnerving than violence. It's not loud, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention. It simply exists. And in its stillness, it dominates. That weapon is silence. In a world that screams louder every day. In a culture that tells you to express every emotion, narrate every step, and confess every thought, the man who chooses silence becomes a ghost in a crowd of noise. Unreadable, unpredictable, and therefore untouchable. Machiavelli understood this. He saw that power doesn't always need to be asserted through aggression. Sometimes it only needs to be felt, and nothing is felt more deeply, more mysteriously, than a man who says nothing, yet makes everyone uneasy. You've felt this before. You've been in the presence of someone who didn't speak often, but when they did, the room froze. Not because they were loud, but because they were measured, disciplined, calculating. That man holds power. Because mystery in human psychology is magnetic. We are drawn to what we can't explain. We respect what we can't predict. We fear what we can't read. And that's why Machiavelli advised rulers to never reveal their full hand, to stay hidden behind layers of strategy, to let action, not explanation, do the talking. Let me ask you, how much of yourself are you constantly revealing? How many times have you overshared your struggles thinking it would earn you empathy? How often have you explained a no so people wouldn't be upset with you? How many boundaries have you justified because you feared being misunderstood? This constant need to be seen, to be understood, to be liked, it's not strength, it's exposure. And in the real world, exposure gets punished. Machiavelli wrote in a world of backstabbing advisors, hidden alliances, and power games played in the shadows. But you don't have to be a prince to understand what he knew. The less you say, the more they wonder. The more they wonder, the more they respect. Because uncertainty is terrifying. And uncertainty is power. People cannot control what they cannot predict. They cannot manipulate what they cannot read. They cannot prepare for what they cannot understand. This is the essence of weaponized silence. Let them wonder why you went quiet. Let them question why you didn't reply. Let them invent stories about why you walked away without explanation. They will fill the silence with their own fears. And that is how you dominate, without ever lifting a finger. Because in war, the enemy who talks too much gives away his strategy. And in life, the man who explains too much gives away his soul. You want real power? Say less. Do more. When someone disrespects you, don't argue. Withdraw. When someone crosses your line, don't explain. Enforce. When someone tries to guilt you, don't react. Disappear. Make silence your boundary. Make absence your punishment. Make mystery your armor. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about emotional repression. This isn't about becoming a robot. This is about tactical control. You're not hiding because you're afraid. You're silent because you've learned. You've learned that emotions are currency, and you don't just hand them out. You've learned that your story is sacred, not a public exhibition. You've learned that your mind is a weapon, not a diary for the world to read. You are not obligated to explain your truth to people who have not earned access to it. Let others perform. Let others narrate their every move. Let them scream for attention, for applause, for pity. You remain silent, focused, deliberate. And when you move, let it be like a storm. No warning, no explanation, only impact. Because when silence breaks, when the mystery ends, when the quiet man acts, everyone watches. So here's your shift. Stop broadcasting your pain. Stop narrating your intentions. Stop asking for people to understand you. Let your mystery be your message. Let your silence be your strength. Let your actions be your explanation. Because the man who is feared isn't the one shouting. He's the one they can't figure out. Machiavelli didn't want you to become cruel. He wanted you to become invisible until you strike. And when you do, the world will finally understand the weight of a man who never needed to say a word to command the room. There's a line that, once crossed, changes everything. It separates the weak from the strong, the naive from the aware, the ones who beg for peace from the ones who enforce it. That line is called a boundary, and it means nothing if it isn't backed by cruelty. You've been taught that kindness wins, that boundaries should be explained, that if you're firm but polite, people will respect you. They won't, because in the real world, kindness without consequence breeds disrespect. People don't listen to your words, they watch your reactions. If you say, "Don't do that again," but still tolerate it, you just taught them it's okay. If you say, "I need space," but still answer every message, you just gave them access to invade. If you say, "That's not acceptable," but smile nervously to keep the peace, you just handed them your spine. Machiavelli didn't believe in vague morality. He believed in results, and he understood this brutal truth. It is much safer to be feared than loved if one must choose, because fear respects boundaries. Fear hesitates. Fear thinks twice. Love alone, it assumes access. It pushes past your limits. It wants more. Always more. That's why your boundaries must come with teeth. Cruelty is what makes them real. Now let's be clear. Cruelty doesn't mean sadism. It doesn't mean rage, chaos, or destruction. It means this. You deliver clean, calm, unapologetic consequences to anyone who crosses the line. That's it. They lie. You walk. They disrespect. You cut access. They test your limit. You show them where it ends with silence and distance. No yelling, no speeches, no second chances. Because in a world where everyone is testing your boundaries, only those who enforce them without mercy keep their power. People will call you cold. Let them. They'll say you've changed. Good. You should. They'll accuse you of being heartless. That's how you know it's working. Because the second you stop letting others dictate your worth, the second you stop tolerating crumbs, excuses, and disrespect, they lose control of you. And people don't like losing control. But that's the point. You weren't born to be liked. You were born to be respected. And respect isn't built through empathy alone. It's built through consequence. Let's go deeper. Ask yourself, why have your boundaries failed in the past? Did you explain them too much, hoping for understanding? Did you offer too many warnings, hoping they'd get it? Did you give in just once because you didn't want to hurt their feelings? That's not compassion. That's fear disguised as virtue. Because a real boundary doesn't need to be explained. It needs to be felt. Once. This is strategic cruelty. Not reacting emotionally, but acting decisively. Not needing revenge, but delivering discipline. Not just defending yourself, but setting a precedent. You train people how to treat you by what you allow, what you ignore, and what you walk away from. If you let them return after betrayal, you've trained them to betray again. If you forgive without consequence, you've trained them to hurt you again. If you tolerate chaos, you've trained them to bring you more. Strategic cruelty says, I don't argue, I don't beg, I don't explain. I remove access, immediately, indefinitely, without noise. That's real power. You think boundaries are about protection. They're not. They're about identity. Every time you let someone cross a line, you lose a piece of yourself. You send a signal to your own psyche. I'm not worth defending. But every time you hold the line, every time you walk away, every time you make them feel the cost, you reclaim your self-respect. You remind your subconscious, I am the standard. And no one rises above it unless I permit it. That is the mindset of a ruler. That is how a man becomes untouchable. So next time someone tests you, don't flinch. Don't explain. Don't threaten. Just act cruelly, calmly, completely. Because if your boundaries don't scare the wrong people, they'll never protect you from them. Control is not domination. It's not loud. It's not forceful. And it never reveals its source. True control is invisible. It's silent. It's psychological. It doesn't bend others through threat. It makes them bend themselves. This is the secret. You don't overpower people. You reflect them. You become the mirror. People are obsessed with themselves, their image, their desires, their identity. And when they look at you, they're not looking for you. They're looking for confirmation of who they believe they are. Now here's the dangerous truth. The one who reflects someone's identity back to them controls them. Here's how it works. The more someone sees themselves in you, their values, dreams, fears, beliefs, the more they trust you. Trust isn't earned. It's mirrored. Once they see their own reflection in your eyes, they open the gates, they lower the walls, they hand you the keys, not because you asked, but because you understood them better than they understand themselves. This is psychological mimicry, subtle, precise, unstoppable. You adopt their rhythm, you reflect their language, you validate their shadow. Suddenly, they don't know why they feel drawn to you. They just do. They feel safe, seen, exposed, but not judged. And that's when you have control, because when someone feels fully seen, they follow. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But only one gets to choose the direction of that transformation. The one who remains empty, still, unattached, the mirror. You don't chase, you absorb, You don't lead with your identity. You reflect theirs until they lose it in you. They can't argue with the mirror. They can't hate the mirror, because the mirror shows them their own chaos, their own beauty, their own contradictions. And when you become that mirror, you become indispensable, because the modern soul is addicted to validation, and you've become their drug. But there's more. To truly control someone without force, you must master withholding. Validation is the hook. Withdrawal is the leash. Give them a taste of being understood, then disappear. They'll chase the mirror to feel whole again. Say less, reveal less. Let silence shape your presence. They will project their desires into your void. And that projection becomes a leash they built themselves. This is how kings ruled without lifting a sword, how seducers shattered empires without a touch, how Machiavellian minds bend entire rooms without a word, not through power, through projection. Ask yourself, do people feel exposed around you? Do they talk more than you do and reveal more than they realize? Do they seek your approval, even when you never offer judgment? If yes, you're already becoming the mirror, but control requires restraint. Never break the illusion by making it about you. Stay mysterious, stay detached. The moment you insert your ego, you shatter the glass, and the spell is broken. You want control? Don't force it. Don't fight for it. Become the mirror, and they will hand it to you, willingly, blindly, permanently. There is a level of existence, beyond weakness, beyond need, beyond being controlled, judged, or even understood. A level where you don't chase approval. You don't flinch at rejection. You don't shrink for love or roar for dominance. You simply exist, immovable, unshakable, untouchable. This is what we call God mode. But understand, God mode isn't about being above others. It's about being beyond reach. No one can manipulate you because you no longer require validation. No one can humiliate you because your sense of self doesn't depend on perception. No one can seduce you because your desires no longer control you. You are still present, silent, and terrifying. Why? Because nothing frightens a world built on emotional chaos more than a soul it can't move. To reach God mode, you must cut ties with 3 chains: the need to be liked, the fear of being misunderstood, the addiction to reacting. Each one is a leash. Each one is a weapon used against you. Most people are slaves to their emotions, and worse, slaves to how others perceive those emotions. That's why they break under pressure, why they fall for manipulation, why they can't say no, walk away, or speak truth, because their self is externalized. God mode reverses that. You pull everything back in. You become a fortress. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating every shadow, every contradiction, every wound. You become your own authority, your own father, your own law. You don't follow morality, you embody it, your own code, unshaken by guilt or praise. God mode means you no longer react, you respond, you decide. When someone insults you, mocks you, questions you, you don't get defensive. Why? Because nothing they say matters. They're not speaking to you. They're projecting. And you're no longer a mirror. You're stone. Silence becomes your weapon. Stillness becomes your shield. Presence becomes your sword. You speak when needed, act without warning, and vanish when the time is right. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." In God mode, you are neither. You are simply observed. Because love can be weaponized, fear can be manipulated, but a presence that doesn't seek either cannot be used. This is the paradox. The less you need from others, the more power you gain over them. You become unpredictable, unreadable, and therefore uncontrollable. Here's how you build God mode. Train your silence. Speak less. Say only what cuts deep. Master discomfort. Sit with rejection. Stay calm under chaos. Endure stillness. Withdraw strategically. Let people feel your absence. Power expands in the void. Disengage from the herd. You are not a performer. You are not here to entertain. Turn pain into purpose. Use every scar as a seal, a mark of sovereignty. God mode is not about arrogance. It's about oneness. You realize you are not above the world. You are part of it, but untangled. You feel everything, but you are owned by nothing. You can walk into any room and sense every emotion, but none of them stick to you. You are no longer a slave to your past, or your impulses, or their opinions. You are still, not because you're cold, but because you're complete. So many people live to be seen, to be understood, to be accepted, but the truly powerful, they live to see, to understand, to accept nothing that weakens their spirit. That is God mode, a state of being, where the world bends, attacks, pleads, and screams, and you remain untouched. Welcome to the final stage. You are no longer performing, no longer proving, no longer seeking. You are the presence behind the mask, the fire behind the eyes, the silence that makes kings tremble. God mode isn't coming. It's already inside you.